Well, welcome back to Daybreak on Trust Television. It's the newspaper review segment of the program, and as is customary, I have a copy of the Daily Trust with me. Now, let's look at the front pages. Lead story there says, "My wife, 5 kids, still missing," according to a survivor. Talking about the unfortunate situation currently in Borno State, the Borno Flood precisely. "I thought I would die with my 6 children. Canoe operators collected 100,000 naira to rescue my sheep. NGF visits affected areas, donates 100 million naira. Fintiri 50 million naira. 259 dead, over 1 million affected in 29 states, according to the National Emergency Management Agency. The pictorial there, well, it's a quite obvious pictorial with people affected by floods and them being escorted through the flood water on a military boat in Maiduguri very recently. We see another picture of children rescued in a crane from a rooftop as the floodwater submerged Polwaya Biu in Maiduguri. And finally, another picture of vehicles and also keke napeps or tricycles submerged under the water, still in Maiduguri. Other stories there say 30 die in Kaduna, Kano Road crashes. Edo governorship, PDP declines to sign peace accord. I think you should read more on that story on page 13. An interesting story, I must say. And also, few queues resurface in Abuja. Nigeria must investigate attacks on journalists. This is according to the International Press Institute. We now go to the Punch newspaper. Punch newspaper atop the page says NNPC Dangote crude sale product buyback deal. NNPC team to monitor production at refinery. Tinubu governors Obasanjo mourn as Owa Obokun joins his ancestors. Other stories there. Lead story especially says Edo governorship poll. Opposition fears violence as PDP shuns peace accord. INEC distributes final batch of PVCs today as poll holds next Saturday. Abdul Salami panel sues for peace. Other stories, blind mothers missing kids found in Lagos after 10-month search. Recapitalization, manufacturers, SMEs struggle as banks take over capital market. And The Guardian says, lead story, Edo Guba, fragile peace deal stokes insecurity, apathy, fears. And also, PSC bars police officers from investigating land and marital matters. The question now is, who will? Protesters demand release of detained PDP members in Edo. Also, hackers intensify attacks on educational institutions for ransom, says expert. Flooding, Aloe Dam repairs cost 762 million naira in 12 years, 26 million naira before collapse. And CUPP to Tinubu, you've lost touch with reality. You want to know why they said it? Well, you should read the news page 3. And also, bandits block Zamfara highway, abduct travelers, kill soldiers. Obtaining the Nigerian passport without tears. That's the editorial for The Guardian. And also, foreign patronage in equities dips by 73% in 8 years. And from The Guardian, we go to The Nation newspaper. It says, governors rally support for devastated Borno flood victims. Top of the page, Nigeria to get 589 billion naira impact on health. Others with Britain Tinubu, King Charles meet in London. These are the stories, some of the stories on the Nation newspaper this morning. And now we go to our guest in the studio, who, of course, is our reviewer, talking about the editor of the 21st Century Chronicle, no other than Nuruddin Abdullah. Interestingly, this morning, he has chosen to adorn white with me. While this is no coincidence, I think I just have to ask him, because you're looking like the governor of Niger State, talking about the adornment of the cap. What's left, of course, is the sketchers. But where is your police convoy? Are you one of those VIPs who has taken up the 150,000 police officers that's crucially needed to police Nigeria and Nigerians?
Like I say, it's a mere coincidence.
Indeed, it's a mere coincidence. But editor, a lot of conversation has been, on the Nigerian police very recently. I mean, it formed part of our discussion today, and also on the Daybreak Interactive session, we had Nigerians calling to talk about their sense of safety, especially when they see, a police officer. So perhaps you can speak to the way Nigerians have over time seen VIPs take up a lot of this personnel and boots on the grounds that are needed to provide the much needed security that they crave for, as opposed to having these men in the streets with them.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. And the dearth of personnel, particularly in the police force, has been a recurring dismal, maybe in the last 10 years or so. During Buhari's administration, he promised to be recruiting 10,000
yearly,
annually. But the last 10,000, he directed the Police Service Commission and the police force to recruit. I don't know whether they have finished the crisis, that caused the seat of the former Inspector General of Police, Ms. Lee Smith, who was the chairman of the Police Service Commission. We had Ms. Lee Smith, we had former IGP Arase. So I don't know, it's a lot of talk, no action. I listened to the former IG Okiro speaking. We had more officers than other ranks who are actually the people that are patrolling the streets, the villages, the towns, and what have you. And unfortunately, they have been deployed to VIPs. Due the count, we have 360 House of Reps members. Let's assume 2 policemen each, which is more than that, particularly those heading some of the committees that are security,
the senior legislative officers.
Exactly, and what have you. Look at the senators. Majority of them are former governors. They move in motorcades.
Some of them have had police protection almost their entire political career.
Exactly. So the people who are supposed to be protected are left unguarded. Look at what the Katsina governor said. He mentioned just one local government. And that is just Katsina. There are places the police are not up to that. Go to Kaduna, for instance. Pick Sanga local government. How many men are in the police division? Katsina is a center of gravity as far as banditry is concerned. And one local government, you have less than 36 or so. So that's the problem. So in this issue of recruitment, particularly the other ranks, the police colleges need to be revamped, and the process needs to be streamlined so that, the ego fight between the IG and the Police Service Commission, should be avoided completely.
All right. Well, let's now go to the lead story on the Daily Trust. It says, "My wife, 5 kids still missing," according to a survivor. We've seen also donations coming in from well-meaning Nigerians, from the government. And of course, we've seen the National Emergency Management Agency on top of its game in the last few days over the unfortunate situation that has happened in Maiduguri. But also, we've also seen on the front page of a newspaper recently, I think the Guardian newspaper of this morning, where it says it cost 726 million for the continuous rehabilitation of the Alo Dam. and very recently 26 million before its collapse. Does this speak volumes in terms of Nigeria's maintenance culture?
So I don't know whether this figure you mentioned is the budgeted funds or the actual releases. These are two different things.
Indeed.
Our budget is just an envelope budget. You just vote money for
monies do not necessarily
exactly. So particularly those the dams in particular. If you look at the minister, which is being manned by the Minister of Water Resources. So what is the actual release? Yesterday there are stories of a federal produce agency located in Kano with some hundreds of millions budgeted for the acquisition of motorcycles, street lights in some southwestern states.
Interesting.
So you can see the entire budgeting system is very ambiguous with almost zero transparency. And unfortunately, again, unlike, let's say, the United States, for instance, whereby the budget is a law that the president of the United States must
obey to the T.
Exactly. But here you are talking about budget performance. How many percent? When Buhari was there, they said, okay, hooray, we have achieved 40%. The only thing they do is to pay salary, overhead, maybe some part of it. But the capital votes is something that we hardly implement. So that is it. And more importantly, Alo Dam is not the only dam that needs absolute maintenance. There are dams across the state, particularly in the northern parts. And things with the government. We are just waiting until
that's where the maintenance culture comes.
Exactly. I hope this tragedy in Maiduguri will be a trigger to the Ministry of Water Resources and all the relevant agencies to a sort of a health check of these water bodies we have.
Integrity
because most of them are disaster waiting to happen.
Now, you see, talking about disaster to happen, editor, I mean, in 2012, what we were hearing, and of course in other years that came successively, we heard the mention of the Lagdo Dam. The Lagdo Dam might be open for waters to come in, and it might have areas like Adamawa, Kogi State, and the likes flooded. Now, we've not heard anything from the Lagdo Dam. Are you concerned that perhaps the situation, as unfortunate as it is in Maiduguri, has happened, but there might be more to come, especially because of the predictions by the Nigeria Geological Services agencies of more rain to fall in the next 5 or so days?
Definitely. The river Benue,
of course,
is economically unviable because of the Lagdo. It has been dammed by Cameroon, unlike the river Niger. The Nigerian authorities, we had an agreement, and what have you. But if this is a recurring this month, and unfortunately, our municipality authorities are unable, to implement certain policies or laws, particularly building on the river banks. So it's a recurring. We are just waiting for the disaster to
Doesn't that speak volumes about the reactionary approach of the government of the day, where you wait despite all of the warnings and the predictions, you still wait for the tragedy to happen so the NEMA can just go there with palliatives and mattresses and give to families, and then life continues as it seems. The flood channels are not going to be opened up. Persons living in those areas that are prone to flooding are not going to be evacuated. And it looks like you said, a recurring dismal. Where do we get to until something is, crucial is done about the situation? Maiduguri, a large chunk or a large portion of the city is currently underwater as it is, or is currently flooded to a very large extent. Do we need to wait till something worse than the Maiduguri situation happens until we do something about it? 1 million persons affected is no small figure.
And particularly bearing in mind the economic situation.
The economic situation.
The little they have has been flooded.
A lot of Nigerians cannot, as cities, afford to relocate their families on their own out of these areas, to safe or highland. So do we need to continue to wait? I continue to ask these questions because it's been over 10 years of us seeing all of this happen, and none of them seem to be able to stop because the climate change situation in the world and on the global space as it is seems to be worsening.
Take for instance, Maiduguri is a very large, they have a very large swath of land, and it is not chalked up compared to say like Kaduna or Kano. Or even Lokoja. Imagine this thing happening in Lokoja. Where do you evacuate people to?
I do not want
there is no such arrangements.
Indeed.
We only have primary schools which land has been encroached upon by people who have people in government. So that is the situation. We are just NEMA is every year they do budgeting for palliatives. Yeah, there is going to be flood, and we are going to share rice, mattresses, blankets, and that's it. Whereas the main issue is left untouched. Go to Kaduna, go to River Kaduna. You don't need the knowledge of being a geographer or to know that if the river overflows, it will take care of this. This is a natural course of the river. But people build on it. Indeed. And the government turn a blind eye.
There are no sanctions.
There are no sanctions because all these things are being done with the complicity of the municipality authorities.
Indeed.
Go to Kaduna, it's a recurring dismal. Kogi is a recurring dismal. Even in Plateau, for instance, presently there is flood. And simply because the water canals have been blocked or have been encroached upon.
Indeed. Well, let's move to another story. The front page of the Guardian story has, the Guardian newspaper, of course, has a story of the 400 Nigerians who were deported from the United Arab Emirates. Editor, we still have people struggling to travel to the UAE, despite, the seeming ruckus or fracas that Nigerian government has with the UAE government. I just want you to comment on this issue.
There is this saying, particularly by these people, I make it or I die trying. So the economic situation in the country, when you interact with some of them, particularly when you see the type of jobs they do, maybe the value of our currency is a key. Was in Saudi Arabia, I met a lady. I say, this thing that you are doing here, if you put this effort that you are putting here back in Nigeria, I think you can make more money. But she was an illegal, what do you call irregular migrant, and what have you. She will carry her wares, run when the authorities, come out of it. I was telling her, you can make more
reasonably,
decently back in your country.
With freedom, of course.
With freedom and what have you. So I don't know, maybe it's a mentality. If you are a graduate here, there are certain things that you will not do. But when you cross over to other countries, you can do it. As even in countries that are not even the first world, in US, Europe, or even the Arab countries, even in Ghana, you see people doing things that they will not ordinarily do here. But I don't know, you understand? Take Egypt, for instance. Some years back, I saw some guys, riding bikes, doing this food delivery. I was discussing, he has masters. In fact, he was going for his PhD.
All right.
But a typical Nigerian cannot do that here.
In Nigeria, the ego will be too big.
You understand?
Indeed,
but when it comes to economy, it's a reality.
Truly.
He was saving for his PhD.
All right.
And he was a dispatcher.
Well, these are some of the situations that quite a number of Nigerians have found themselves outside Nigeria as they go on in that search, of course, for greener pastures. But unfortunately, this is where we draw the curtain on Daybreak this morning. Editor, thank you so much for being a part of this program and, of course, for delivering some analysis and perspectives of the developments that made it to the front page. And, of course, like I said, we call the program Wraps, and I hope that you've enjoyed every single segment and aspect of the program starting from 8 a.m. until this point. To watch more on the program, simply follow us across all of our social channels and also catch our live stream on YouTube for more news programs and documentaries. But for me, it's signing out saying thank you so much. Have a lovely weekend. My name is Sagir Ibrahim. Join the 360 Sports up next at the top of the hour.